James Weller, the Boxing Source, here with another video. And this video here is to talk about the situation that is pretty much out there for Callum Smith. Callum Smith is the WBA, WBC Diamond and Ring Magazine Super Middleweight Champion. But it seems like there has been some issues with him locking down a big fight. Now, he did have his last fight in November 23rd, 2019 against John Ryder. But, ever since he became the Ring Magazine Super Middleweight Champion as the winner of the World Boxing Super Series in the final against George Groves, there hasn't really been anything to put him in position to have a high-profile fight at the super middleweight division. Now, you have him as the WBA super champion, and there are the fighters that also hold belts in the super middleweight division, which include David Benavidez as the WBC champion. You also have Caleb Plant as the IBF champion. And you have Billy Joe Saunders as the WBO champion. But right now, we have had the news circulate that Billy Joe Saunders will be putting up that WBO super middleweight title against Saul Canelo Alvarez over at the T-Mobile Arena on May 2nd. So basically, the biggest fight, or one of the biggest fights that could be made in boxing with Saul Canelo Alvarez, will be Billy Joe Saunders. So you have those two guys fighting each other. David Benavidez will be defending his title against Romer Alexis Angulo, and Caleb Plant, who recently had his defense of the IBF title against highest ranked, or quote unquote mandatory challenger Vincent Feigenbutz. He was able to get the stoppage victory there. So that means that Callum Smith is still out there without a fight. Now, he had Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing recently have an interview with IFL TV, and in the last part of that interview with IFL TV, they talked about Callum Smith and what his possibilities would be. And Eddie Hearn was talking about, potential fight with Daniel Jacobs, or, talking to PBC about a potential unification fight between Callum Smith and Caleb Plant. And they also, brought up the possibility of Callum Smith fighting Chris Eubank Jr. But Chris Eubank Jr. currently is the, the interim champion in the WBA for middleweight. So that is, a small chance that fight would happen. It looks like, I think PBC was trying to put together a fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Jermall Charlo for the WBC middleweight championship. So I would say that Chris Eubank is out of it. So that leaves Caleb Plant, and that leaves Daniel Jacobs. Now, the thing here is that you have Callum Smith there under your Matchroom banner. You also have Daniel Jacobs there under the Matchroom banner. Daniel Jacobs, who recently had that win over who I call Little Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So there should be not much of an issue for Eddie Hearn to make that fight between Callum Smith and Daniel Jacobs, especially now since the whole thing about the possibility of having Callum Smith have a unification bout with Billy Joe Saunders being out, since Saunders is going to be slated to fight Canelo Alvarez on May 2nd. So why not have Callum Smith fight Daniel Jacobs for those super middleweight titles that Callum Smith has? I mean, you could go ahead and make that fight happen. It would be, a voluntary defense of those WBA and WBC titles that Callum Smith has. So why not make that fight? And it would be in house. It would be a matchroom, presentation, matchroom promotion, and have it over in the UK. But not having much of anything here on slate for Callum Smith, and not necessarily locking things down for Callum Smith after he won the World Boxing Super Series, kind of like shows a little bit of neglect of sorts in reference to Callum Smith and putting him in position to have the high profile fights that he has been looking for. So we will see here what happens in the next few weeks in reference to Callum Smith when his next defense of those world titles that he has will take place. But that's what I got here for now in reference to this particular topic. You can subscribe to the Boxing Source here on YouTube and catch the Boxing Source radio show Sundays 7:30 live, or catch the podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. On that note, folks, I'm out. Peace.